hate them.
I think it's awful.
It's definitely very concerning.
It's based on a lot of misinformation.
They're portraying like foreigners as a threat to the country and to our values.
I don't really understand where it's coming from.
The people have spoken, right?
The Alternative for Deutschland, or AfD, has recently won a state election for the first time in its history. I wanted to find out what Germans here in Portugal think about this party and their policies, and whether this is part of a wider trend of populism we're currently seeing in other parts of the world. How do you feel about the rise of far-right parties like the AfD in Germany at the moment?
I think it's really, it gets difficult. Like they really gotten big in the last couple of years.
I think it's pretty worrying. Like we've seen it a couple of years ago, a couple of decades ago, and we're seeing the exact same thing again. And people kind of notice, but they kind of don't do anything about it.
They're like shit. We don't like them at all, and they're we hate them.
Why do you hate them?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because they have a really strong radical opinion, and they stand for everything that I don't stand for.
People can vote for whoever they like. I mean, we still have a free election in Germany. It's still as it should be. So I don't feel that it's like a huge problem.
I think it's very unfortunate that they're rising because I think it's based on a lot of misinformation. East Germany, or at least Dresden, has the history of like the, Pegida started there. And they're obviously against a lot of, for example, immigration, which again is very unfortunate because I think they're just not really informed about what that actually means for the country. I think a lot of people are scared. First of all, I think a lot of people are scared that they're, the classic argument is that they're taking their jobs, which is, of course, not true.
Everybody gets to vote for who they want to, and if that's the case, then the people have spoken, right?
It's super I think in Thüringen they got like 37% of the votes, which is like insane. It's like, I think the best result they ever had. It's super I think it's awful, and yeah.
It's definitely very concerning. I think, history has kind of taught us a lot of lessons that we should not forget about, and to see kind of similar movements happening again is, it makes you wonder how it's possible and if people really didn't learn anything from it.
So yeah, you made a pretty dark reference to history there. Obviously, we know what you're talking about with the Nazi Party. Would you say that the current AfD party resembles the Nazi Party in any way?
I mean, I think it's, they're definitely moving in similar directions with some of their statements. So it's difficult to say that like the exact same thing is going to happen again, but some of the ideologies are rooted in similar areas for sure.
Do you mind like elaborating on like what specifically you disagree with about their policies?
I think the whole idea is super Like we're living in a world with like I got the privilege of being born in Germany. That's why I'm German, but a lot of people don't have the privilege to be born there.
Sure.
And I feel like it's super fucked just because you were born somewhere else to like exclude people from the chances we're getting in Germany. Like I was lucky, but a lot of people were not lucky, and super fucked just because I was lucky that they don't have the same chances as me.
Can you give us specifics of like which of their ideologies or which of their policies might be, considered fascist?
Well, just in general, like kind of that they're portraying like foreigners as a threat to the country and to our values, and just the German population. That's kind of similar to what it used to be. I mean, they're just doing it a bit more general and not specific to like some groups.
Basically everything. When we talk about the AfD, they don't offer solutions. They're just like claiming all the problems we currently have in the country, which I think it's normal. Like it's just government, but they just disagree with everything, but don't offer solutions. And they are just not like, as they call themselves, an alternative for Germany. They're just not. So I don't agree with anything they say.
What about their policies specifically are worrying?
I think it's just the most worrying part is probably people are just being very extreme at the moment because they're dissatisfied. So like it's just they don't even think about the consequences and their actions. They just, I don't know, they just want to like vote for some extreme party to just show that they're not satisfied with the current situation.
Just wanted to interject quickly because I'm sure it's very obvious at this stage that the vast majority of opinions expressed in this video are very one-sided. Now, in the interest of making an objective video, I tried very, very hard to find somebody with a different viewpoint. However, I was unable to find almost anybody who was willing to speak on camera and express their views on the AFD. That's hardly surprising given the political nature of the topic and the fact that cancel culture is rife. So yeah, if you do have an opinion, please drop it below, and back to the video. You know specifically what they're proposing? Like, I haven't read any of their manifestos or anything. Do you know what they're saying?
No, not exactly. Unfortunately, I'm not very informed in that regard. But I mean, I think a big part in Germany, for example, is I mean, the argument is the following, right? They're saying we have a lot of immigrants. You know, our tax money is for like the asylum seekers and the immigrants, but and they're taking our jobs, and that's like incorrect. Like, I mean, yes, they're working, but they're not really taking anyone's job. I mean, there's definitely a lot of job security in Germany in that regard. That's A. And I think a big issue actually is that I was actually discussing this with a friend of mine. Is that so basically the issue is, or not the issue, but something that's not accounted for is like you have asylum seekers and they come to Germany, which is great. You know, we provide them with like housing, food, whatever. But once the war in their country is over, they either should become like a resident in the country or go back. And I think a big issue is that all the other political parties in Germany don't have a proper policy for immigration and asylum seekers. And that's why a lot of people are tempted towards the right, because they have a big problem with this immigration, and it's not properly discussed and not properly handled, and that's why they choose the extreme. And I think that's like a big issue, and I think that's why it's rising to prominence. I mean, it's very problematic, unfortunately.
Migration has been very, very uncontrolled, especially in Europe, and people are now realizing that it's difficult to integrate everyone. I think it's important to do integration, but it has to be controlled. Refugees coming, it should be allowed, obviously, but they have to be integrated. There have to be systems in place to integrate them. That's the biggest problem we've had, especially in Germany. We took a lot of people in. There was nothing in place to actually give them opportunities, and I think that's why we're facing such problems at the moment.
I feel like in Germany, a lot of people are like, they disagree with the government at the moment. So I think just they vote for the far right to like show their protest against the government. Can't tell you why it's happening in other countries, but I feel like it's becoming a global thing. I think also like in Portugal they're voting right at the moment. Like Italy has a minister post right, like France just barely made it.
Yeah. So you think it's a response to what exactly?
To like criticism of the current government. At least that's what's in Germany. Like a lot of people are unsatisfied with the current situation, and yeah, that's how they show the critics, but they don't like think about the consequences.
I mean, we see it all over the world. Everywhere where we have illegal immigration, we have those kind of elections or results.
So you would actually say that the illegal immigration is maybe the primary cause driving this, say, far right or populist uprising?
I think it's part of that, definitely. And I mean, there might be other causes like, I don't know, monetary inflation, where people just don't earn as much anymore as they used to, or they don't have the spending power as they used to. So the poorer you get, the more you look for a cause of that.
A big reason why the far right party, the AfD, was picked was because they kind of saw it as kind of like an alternative, or they basically, I think the way the movement started was that people started voting for it because they were not happy with the party at the time, the CDU. They were like, okay, we don't like this party, we also don't like the Greens, so we're gonna pick basically everything that's against it, so to speak. So they like started picking the right, and then that kind of just like snowballed into what it is today. I mean, I'm assuming you saw the the results of the the votes now in the past few days, and
Yep.
it's very, very sad, very unfortunate that it's the case, because I think a lot of, I mean, I think one fact is a lot of old people are picking the right, which is of course problematic. But I think the biggest problem is that now in the new elections, you saw a rise of younger generations also picking the right, and I think that's actually the biggest problem.
Sorry to interrupt, but why do you think that is? Why are the young people suddenly voting really conservative, voting on the right?
That's a good question. Honestly, I'm not quite sure why. I think it's again based on a lot of like misinformation. I think just a lot of stories of maybe like immigrants or like asylum seekers maybe like having like attacking or something, and I think they just perceive it as everybody's gonna be like this. So I think it's a lot of like fear that's basically based on non-proper relay or proper communication or proper information.
The most suspicious thing is that also like young people voting for them. So that's a bit weird and a bit not that what I expect from my generation, to be honest. I've no clue what's so attractive in those parties, like especially also for young people, because it is a lot of like traditional and also not into like Europe a lot, what young people are aspire to also have in their future. So I don't know. It's crazy. Like I cannot tell why.
Would you say that they're racist?
Who?
The AFD.
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't say all of these people are racist. It's just a problem that these parties like say that everything will be better as soon as they get voted and are voted into the government. So I think many people are just hoping for something to become better. And also I think many people kind of want to protect their own culture. They are afraid of that culture is taken away from them. For example, if we like now move to Lisbon and live here, but again, I think it's just a beautiful thing that people are traveling around, want to explore different cultures. Like we're not trying to take away anything, we just want to explore it and kind of be part of it. But I think many people are just afraid of that, but they aren't like racist. I mean, some of them are obviously, but not all of them are racist. They're just hoping for something to get better. But again, that's just the wrong way.
The solutions they're proposing to the problems we have right now in Germany are not as racist as people claim. And there are some probably racist or Nazi-ish people in the AfD, but I don't think it's the entire party.
Like if we're getting a fucking chancellor of the AfD, I think it's gonna be awful.
What do you think will happen?
I feel like probably a lot of like people would have to leave the country. Like they would get their visa revoked. It's gonna be shitty for a lot of companies because a lot of companies depend on like foreign workers. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a huge dip for the economy.
The one thing that I heard is like my grandparents, they came basically like from Turkey to Germany. So I'm basically an immigrant or came like with an immigration background. And the one thing that I heard about the specific state that we're talking about, with the 33% or something with after the elections, they're talking about remigration, that they're considering sending people back from Germany to where they migrated.
Like legal migrants, they're going to send legal.
That's what I heard. That's what I understood.
Do you think it's becoming a global movement? And if so, what is the cause of this and why is it happening now?
Yeah. So basically here at University in Lisbon, like Nova University, and here a lot of European young people, and it's crazy because like I have Italian friends, I have Dutch friends here, and everyone is talking about that. Yeah, that's basically the government's future is like will be right, or the elections that you have in a lot of those countries that they're going like more far right. So I think unfortunately it's a European movement.
Very good question. I think it is definitely a global move. Don't ask me for the reasons, but I can definitely see that European tendencies are going far right. I guess it's just, generally speaking, you could say everybody's just dissatisfied. Like we've seen after like World War, we've seen a little bit of a move or a shift into like middle and then left, maybe even. And I don't know, countries are just, whatever has happened, they're not happy with it. And people are like, well, we didn't like that. so we're just going to vote for the extreme opposite.
Do think that we see it in a lot of countries, like not only in Germany, which is probably even more concerning. Because it's, yeah, to see that other countries are also moving in the same direction makes it a bit more scary because, yeah, it might get out of control. We don't know. A lot of it is rooted in the fact that people are just not satisfied anymore with their situation they're in, and they try to find an outlet or like someone that, yeah, promises them that they can change something in whatever direction that is.
Yes, I think we see that movement in a lot of countries, which again kind of scares me, especially in Europe, like in the European Union, especially. Many countries kind of have these movements now. And again, I don't know where it's coming from. I think many people are just not happy with like the European Union becoming closer, which I think is a beautiful thing, but obviously many people disagree with it. And also I think especially like in each of the countries, they're just unhappy with the government. I think France has its own problems, the US has its own problems, and that's just something happening now. And I think those people voting for these parties are just hoping for some kind of like new policies or whatever, that something that changes, but I think that's not the right way. So
Looking at things globally, where or a lot of people are tending to go more in the right. So I think one reason for this is that just economically in the past few years we haven't been doing that great. So I mean, you know, you had the pandemic, and then you had like some recessions. I mean, in 2023 in March you had like a banking crisis, which of course didn't have that big an effect, but it's just a lot of big and small things just piling up. And I think when in time of economic downturn, or just in time of recession, or in time of crisis, I think people turn to the extremes. And I think that's why a lot of people in America started to put the entire blame on Biden, and then they started turning to Trump. Or I think Trump had some empty promises the past few years about how, you know, he thinks that he can improve the economic situation, which I don't think is the case. I actually think, and I read this morning, that Goldman Sachs actually predicts that if Harris gets voted for president, there will actually be an economic boost, economic growth in the USA. And they actually said that, or they predict that if Trump becomes president, there will actually be it would be actually bad for the economy because he'll impose tariffs. Do that.
Yeah, what are her economic policies?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, unfortunately. I'm trying to remember. What?
I came into the video with zero knowledge about the AFD and their policies to try and be as objective as possible. In retrospect, having now read the AFD's manifesto, I couldn't find many examples of far-right extremism. However, I implore you to do your own research. Read the manifesto and make your own mind up about this party and whether they are indeed a threat to democracy as claimed in the media. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.